second graders. This is Miss Kish, and today we are learning in science about earthquakes. So I want you to take a minute, think about something you know about earthquakes already. Okay, did you think of some facts that you know about earthquakes? Let's take a look at this map. This is a map of the Earth, and it shows the big pieces of land or continents on the Earth. Okay, here's North America, where we live, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, which is actually one big piece of land. This is called the Eurasia, sometimes we call it, and then Australia. All right, so second graders, you can see those big pieces of land, you can see the oceans, and you can also see some other lines. These lines on the map are actually show plates. The surface of the Earth is made up of different plates, and those plates rub against each other and bump into each other, and that's when we get earthquakes. Okay, so we're gonna watch a video that explains a little bit more about this. Okay, here we go.
The world around you is just full of things that are on the move. Airplanes in the sky, cars on the road, and tons of animals, including you and me, are walking around everywhere. But you know what? It turns out that the ground beneath your feet is moving too. Most of the time, you can't feel it because most of the time, the ground is moving really slowly. But when you do feel the ground move, that's called an earthquake. During an earthquake, the ground shakes, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. It might seem kind of strange that the ground, which holds up houses and skyscrapers and everything else, can actually move, but it does, and it's all because of the way the Earth is made. If you could cut the Earth in half and look at it like this, you'd see that the Earth isn't a solid ball all the way through. It has layers, kind of like a cake. The top, or outside layer of the Earth, what we think of as the ground, is called the crust. Now, even though the crust of the Earth is certainly very strong, it's not made of one big piece. The Earth's crust is actually made of many big pieces that fit together. You can think of these pieces as being like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle, and we call these big pieces of the crust plates. Now, the edges of these plates aren't smooth, like the edges of the plates you eat off of. These plates are made of very thick layers of rock, so their edges are bumpy and jagged with rocky chunks sticking out of them. And it's these plates that make up the Earth's crust that are always moving. Like I said earlier, you usually can't feel or see them moving because they move very slowly. Most plates just creep along at about 1 or 2 centimeters a year. That's slower than your fingernails grow. But how do these moving plates cause earthquakes? Well, if you look at a piece of a puzzle, you'll see there are gaps between the pieces where they touch. And there's a line where the plates touch too. We call that line a fault. Some faults are very thin and too small to be seen, and some are very deep in the Earth's crust. But some faults are really big, and you can see them right on the Earth's surface. For example, this fault, which runs almost the whole length of the state of California, is more than 1,000 kilometers long. And faults are where most earthquakes happen. As the plates of Earth's crust move past each other at a fault, their jagged edges sometimes bump into one another. And when this happens, the ground above the plates and anything on the ground shakes. But sometimes the plates do more than just bump into each other. They get stuck. Have you ever tried to open a door that's stuck? You push, and then all of a sudden, it opens really fast and bangs against the wall. Well, sometimes two different plates can't move past each other, and they get stuck. But they keep trying to move. They push against each other, just like you pushing against that stuck door. When two things push against each other, the force of all that pushing causes what we call pressure. And if the thing that's being pushed doesn't move, that pressure has nowhere to go. So it keeps building up. In the case of our plates of crust, the pressure builds up where they're stuck. It builds and builds until the rocks break and the plates suddenly move. This causes the ground above the plates to shake. Sometimes a lot. How much the ground shakes depends on how much pressure has built up between the plates. The more pressure, the bigger the earthquake. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening beneath your feet, even if most of the time you can't even feel it. Thanks for joining us on SciShow Kids.
Okay, I'm going to show you a few more pictures and little videos of earthquakes, okay? So hang on. Okay, so second graders, I'm going to show you some short, they're real quick, like 1 second videos of different kinds of earthquakes. You don't need to know the names of them, but you can see that they are different ways that rocks are bumping into each other or sliding along each other. Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, so one plate is sliding up against the other plate. Here it is again. Okay. Okay, here's the next one. So they're sliding next to each other. Okay. Here's the next one. So this time the other one is upright and the first one is sliding down. And then there's one more. Okay, this one looks a lot different, doesn't it? There it goes. Okay, so second graders, that is what some of the different kinds of earthquakes might look like depending on how the plates are bumping or sliding against each other. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is watch. I'm going to do kind of a model of an earthquake so you can see what it might look like. Okay, second graders, this is Miss Kish again, and I'm going to show you a model of an earthquake. You could try this at your house. I'm using my writer's notebook and I'm using my blue math journal. And then I found something to put on it that can go on top of both, okay? So I'm using these, but you might have something else at your house that you can use, okay? So here's what I did. Okay, I have my math journal, I have my writer's notebook, and they're right up next to each other. And then I have these blocks that I put part on one and part on the other, okay? So these are my plates, right? My plates are right up against each other. And then this could be like the surface of the earth. This is what is on top. So I could try some of the different earthquakes like we saw in the different video clips, right? I could slide, and when I slide, my blocks are moving. Okay, that would be one kind of earthquake. I could push together, pushing my plates together, so I'm building pressure, right? Like when she said you were trying to push that doorknob, and you can see what's happening to my plates. They're buckling, right? So you can see some different things that might happen when an earthquake happens. Okay, so you could grab those books out and you could try that yourself. If you want, you could even make a video and show it to me on Seesaw, right? So second graders, your activity for today is on Seesaw. You're going to teach me a few things that you have learned about earthquakes.